Welcome back to Long Delays Hobbies. Today we're going to paint a fairly challenging miniature, which is Gollum. Yes, precious. I primed him with Chaos Black, and he only has a few parts to him, so let's start on the easiest part, which is the rock. We're going to base coat that with some Mechanicus Standard Gray Air. Be a little bit messy here because we're going to go back over the skin, so try to get into all those cracks and crevices. We're going to wash that Mechanica Standard Gray with some Nuln Oil. You want to be a little bit heavy with the Nuln Oil here because this rock is grimy and gross. So make sure you give a thorough wash with Nuln Oil here. And we're going to do some dry brushing now with some Dawnstone Air. I'm using a dry brush from Army Painter. You don't have to use a specific dry brush though. You could also use a makeup brush or whatever, even just an old brush is fine. Again, I'm being pretty messy here. I don't care if I get a little bit on his fingers or toes because I'm going to go back over this. And finally, I'm going to use Administrative Gray Air. Just kind of lightly going over the higher points of the miniature. Making sure I leave the nasty, dark parts where the Nuln Oil went remaining. Now to lay down the first coat on the skin, I use Bugman's Glow. The skin for Gollum is rather interesting. It's not really like any skin that I've ever painted before, because while on the one hand it is quite clearly like a person's skin, it's also kind of gross and off color. So you can't just paint it like normal skin. And don't forget, he has these two little ears that are kind of hard to make out because the miniature is so small, so you kind of have to go in pretty far to be able to see where those ears are. So on top of the Bugman's Glow, I kind of did a layer of Rakarth flesh. And I used the Rakarth flesh to pick out his fingers and just most of the higher points of the miniature. Now, once I'm done with the Rakarth flesh, he looks too bright, but we're gonna fix that in a few moments with some washes. So we're gonna put a layer of Reikland flesh shade down on it. That will tamp down the brightness of the Rakarth flesh, and as well as get into some of those cracks and crevices, make his skin look a little bit more natural. So I didn't think that the Rakarth flesh was quite bright enough. I wanted to brighten it up just a little bit more. So I used Deepkin flesh. And I kind of just repeated the previous process. I went over the Rakarth flesh in a few areas, went over his fingers and toes again, as well as the higher points of his face and his ears. Now, once again, as in the previous step, he looks very, very bright. Almost looks like a vampire. But Reichland Flesh Shade will fix that. And now we're going to work on his hair. Now he does have like little bits and strands of hair along his back, so don't forget to pick those out. And you do want to kind of be a bit careful on his back as well as his face and his ears not to paint over those. Now we're going to paint his trousers. I painted those with Rhinox hide. I wanted them to be a little bit brown rather than matching them black. There's kind of an awkward piece on the back where the trousers seem to blend into the rock, so use your discretion there. And with the trousers painted, the base coats are done. So we're going to highlight those trousers with a little bit of Gorthor Brown. Just a few highlights here to make the higher points stand out. Just be extra careful when you're going into that part between Gollum and the rock. It's very easy to accidentally get some paint on the rock, which you definitely don't want to do. So in the films, Gollum has little gray streaks on his hair, so I picked those out with Eshin Gray. And now we've finished everything other than his eyes. So the eyes are actually a little bit bigger on Gollum than they are in your regular standard Middle-earth model, so they're slightly easier to pick out, but still kind of a challenge. This is an optional step, of course, if you don't like painting eyes, but I like to use Ulthuan Gray Air. That way I only have to apply one layer. And just take your time. If you mess up, it's okay. Just go back and apply the previous steps. And then he has very bright blue eyes in the films, so I use Techless Blue to pick out his pupils. I just like to paint one little line very, very slowly. And that's more than enough. And that is Gollum all done. He is ready to pounce on Samwise. And once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and happy hobby.